This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. A male lion floats through the sea of grass that is the Maasai Mara. A magnificent morning has dawned here in Africa. This is CGTN's Wild Wonderland live show.
This is absolutely magnificent.
This is happening, folks. This is 100% live.
Here we are. We're watching the migration story unfold. Here's a lion. There's a lion right next to us.
Oh, that was close.
You can't possibly script something like this.
Jambo, ni hao. Hello, everybody, and it's such a warm welcome to this part of the Mara, to our CGTN Wild Wonderland show. My name is David, and on camera with me this morning is Bungay. And how lucky to start with two black rhinos there, which I guess it is a male and a female. Well, we're coming to you this morning from three countries. I'm talking of the Maasai Mara here in Kenya, and also Serengeti National Park in Tanzania and the Kruger National Park in South Africa. This is CGTN Wild Wonderland Show, and we're coming live, as I said, from those three countries. And remember, should you have any questions or any comments, you are more than welcome to ask us using hashtags CGTN Wild and Wild Wonderland on Twitter. Lovely morning, about 17 degrees Celsius here in the Mara, 62 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is the black rhino we got there. My guess is a male and a female, and what you're seeing on the screen there, it should be a male. Critically endangered, the black rhinos, but the good news, the population now have started to go up. As much as we have two rhinos there, as you can see, our main focus on this particular show this morning is the Great Migration.
The red oatgrass plains of the Mara Serengeti sway in anticipation. In February, around 400,000 wildebeest are born on the short grass of the Serengeti's southern plains. Just half an hour, the calves have found their feet. And one of nature's greatest journeys begins. From the southern plains, more than 1 million animals move northwest into the Serengeti's western corridor, massing on the banks of the Grumeti River. As the rut ends, the herds gallop north once more. Eventually, 2 million grazers arrive to feast on the abundance of the Maasai Mara. It begins with a trickle of the zebra vanguard, enjoying the undisturbed long grass plains, making the first crossings of the turbulent Mara River. Many fall to the rapids and the crocodiles. And then comes the main body of the migration, the thundering herds of white-bearded gnu, bleating songs of chaos in search of green pasture. The herds know the danger, but the call for food is too great. All must take the plunge. Not all will make it. For those that do, hungry prides and clans patrol the banks. For survivors, rich red oatgrass is the reward. Before it's time to cross the river again, as nature's greatest herd follows the life-giving storms and verdant plains of the Mara Serengeti for nourishment.
And welcome to a very overcast Mara Triangle in Kenya, where we are with the Salt Lick Pride, well, one lioness and 3 little teddy bears. How amazing are these guys? My name is Steve Folgovich, joined by Chandra on camera, and she's walking right past us. Look at these little bundles of joy. We've been following them for some time. They are just too gorgeous. Here comes the third one. Look at the size of their feet. I just love little lion cubs. How incredible is that? So this is one of the individuals. There's the jackal just following behind as well. This is one of the lionesses with 3 of the newest members of the pride. James was with them, I think, last night. We've had them a couple of times. But that's the best view we've personally had of those little youngsters. And this jackal's hoping to snatch itself an easy meal. The lioness was looking at some wildebeest not so long ago, but didn't give it too much of an effort. Well, they moved off. They're just going to follow. They moved off from a kill, probably maybe 2 or 3 kills underneath a tree. And there was a male lion there as well. And we are going to head over to that male lion shortly and go and see exactly what he's up to. But in the meantime, James is with the Sausage Tree Pride a little bit further to the west. Let's go and see what those beautiful lions are up to.
So this is the very famous Sausage Tree Pride, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. We've got at least 5 lionesses, and it looked like another one came out of the grass towards them. Let's just count what we have. There are at least 15 lions here, 16 if you include the male. So we've got a lot of youngsters and a lot of lionesses and 1 glorious male who you saw at the very beginning of the show. Now we're going to follow these cats, I think, for the remainder of this show. It looks like they're hunting. I don't know what they're going to find to eat amongst this long grass here. My name is James Henry. On camera is Enormous James with his gloved hand, as always. And we are hopefully going to bring you some wonders with the Sausage Tree Pride. So we've got the 5 lionesses at least. We've got 10 cubs. Yes, it's just the 5 lionesses. And then the 1 big male of the Oldonyo Payek coalition. And this little scene here is one of the most heartwarming scenes that you'll ever see in nature. It's the interaction of a male lion and his cubs. And often you'll find that the males are very impatient with the cubs, and then sometimes they show this remarkable affection, which we as human beings find so appealing because we put a lot of value, we attach a lot of value to the relationship that a father has with his daughters and sons. He's just marking his territory a bit and the little ones are catching up. Right, I'm going to get out of what is a very boggy area here, catch up with the lions, and we're also going to send you 2,500 kilometers to the south to where Lauren Arthur is sitting with a little ball of spots.
I am indeed sitting with Spots. Welcome everyone to the wonderland that is, of course, the Kruger Park in South Africa. And we are sitting with a very sleepy leopard known as Hosanna. My name is Lauren and today I have Seb on camera. And the sun is just starting to come up. It's been a very, very chilly morning. I think about 14 degrees Celsius, 56 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is exactly what Hosanna is trying to do. He's curling himself into a ball to try and get some warmth. Hosanna's a leopard, a male leopard, about 3.5 years old if you haven't met him already. And leopards are primarily nocturnal predators. So that means he's probably been very, very busy during the night doing all sorts of things. And of course, he's curled himself up, nestled himself into the bushes to try and get some warmth. Once he warms up, he probably will move and may potentially go get some water. There is a watering hole behind us, so that would be lovely to see him get up and have his morning drink. It's amazing to share my morning coffee with him. Well, not literally, of course. Coffee is not Hosanna's thing. He is an apex predator who hunts many of the herbivores around here. And although he looks like he's in a delicious sleep, don't get us wrong. If any sort of animal was to walk by, he would be awake quicker in a flash. So we're going to stay here with our sleepy, spotty cat and send you all the way back up to East Africa with some cutie cubs.
Thanks, Lauren. Indeed, Hosanna has the ability to nap like the best of them. thankfully our lions are on the move. Look at their little cuteness. About 8 weeks or so, we reckon. They're very, very young. Very vulnerable, in fact, to all sorts of predation from hyena, other lions, and pretty much anything is a risk to young cubs. White lady Ewan, you think they're so tiny. They are so cute. They are very cute, and they walk far. Mum is taking them quite far, and she's taking them to a little pan off to the left where we're headed now, and that is where they were born. That's where she denned them initially in the beginning. It's called Egyptian goose pan, and just coming up over here. And James has found them here a couple times. We found them that side a couple times. I'm quite surprised at how far she actually carries them, or not carries them, but they follow her. It's quite a lot of effort for a small little animal. You see how quickly their legs are moving to keep up with Mum's long strides. Walking in the road, because the road makes it very easy to walk, makes it quiet, and it's great because when we were following them before, we kept losing them in the long grass. Project Alpha, jackal could potentially pose a threat to a lion cub if it got left alone. I mean, jackal are very opportunistic. There are other vehicles in the sighting with us, everybody. I've seen a jackal kill a wildebeest. I've seen it kill an impala, injured a wildebeest and impala, but it took the opportunity and went for the throat in both occasions and killed the thing. The wildebeest didn't think it was going to happen, and the jackal just did its deed. It didn't keep the kill. The lioness stole it. But if a lion cub was isolated, it most certainly would try and probably kill it. But Mum's not letting them very far out of her sight. Sorry, there's a car just moving there. We're going to have to move quickly, Jandre. Want to keep up with these lions. So definitely, a jackal would definitely make an attempt, but she's not letting them get very, very far out of her periphery. And David's with some rhino, and very similar with them as well. Their youngsters are quite at risk, but Mum doesn't let them go very far from her sights.
Very interesting, Steve, talking about jackals, because in the midst of that grass, I have seen 2 jackals walking very close to those rhinos. Well, in Africa, we got 2 species of rhinos. We got the black rhino and the white rhino. What we have for you there are the black rhinos, and there are a few differences between these 2 species of rhinos. Now, the black rhino, as you can see there, you notice they seem to be feeding, but apparently they're not feeding on grass. If you look very carefully, they're like plucking some small little plants out of the ground, and we call the black rhinos browsers. You notice they just keep moving, stop, pick something from the ground. Whereas the white rhinos, we call them grazers because they just tend to eat grass. Well, interesting why we call them black rhinos, but as you can see, it's not black per se. It looks a little bit grayish or brownish in color. And the main difference between the 2, the black rhino and the white rhino, is not in their coloration. It's in the mouth. Now, this one here got like a hooked mouth, like, got a small your lip hooked or triangular-shaped mouth, while the white rhino got a square-shaped mouth. There's, 2 differences, one important difference between the 2, and the feeding habits are totally different. So this, they'll get the little plants, sometimes some leaves, some twigs, and some bark from the trees. That's exclusively what they eat, whereas the white rhinos will feed more on the grass and not anything else. Critically endangered, as I said earlier, but the good news, the numbers of populations have been going up. One of the difference between these 2 rhinos, apart from the colors, is their gestation periods. They're still about 15, 16 months in their gestation period, while the white rhinos take a little longer than that, doing about 16 to 18 months. Otherwise, apart from that, everything else may remain the same. As we told you earlier, we're coming from 3 different locations, and from here in the Maasai Mara, we'll take you to Kruger National Park, to Jamie, who is trucking.
way down south where, yes indeed, we are tracking animals. My name is Jamie, and behind the camera is Craig, and you're watching CGTN's Wild Wonderland, where we are out on foot live to take you through the bush to see what wonders we can find. And in terms of what wonders I think we can find, well, I've got my very first clue. I started my morning tracking lions, but unfortunately they went the wrong way. But this is definitely not a lion track. And if you look at the sheer size of this track, you'll even be able to see the wrinkles within it. Now, this is very, very clearly an elephant track. It is a male elephant track. And very helpfully, it tells me which way it's going by the way that its toe has dug in here. But before we get too far into finding this male elephant, the first thing I do have to tell you is that we have some really, really good news. Yesterday evening, after we finished up with our Wild Wonderland show and everybody went home, one of the other vehicles that drives around here with one of the guides actually let me know that then they went past the waterhole that the Dacre was stuck in, and she was gone. Magically, she managed to get out. There was no sign of any predation. There were no predators around, no leopards, no hyenas. She just wasn't there anymore. So obviously, as it got cooler, she found a little extra burst of strength. So there you go, a happy end to what could have been a very tragic story. But she did manage to get out and presumably is around somewhere telling several stories. Now, speaking of stories, we all, of course, have many to tell you. And there's just so much to show you, we don't even know where to turn.
Indeed, the bush is always so exciting and unpredictable. And this is a male lion I was talking about that we're not sure what happened. We found the lioness with her 3 cubs on a kill. They were moving away from it when we got there, and that male lion was there. She stopped, and she's left the cubs off to our left, and she's been walking with quite some purpose back towards him. I don't recognize him. He doesn't look like a fully mature male. He might be one of the 2 nomads that were hanging around, not one of the fathers. So it's possible she sees him as a threat. Just a little contact calls. The cubs are coming from the left. She's calling from the right. I'm just going to keep quiet for a moment and maybe hear the cuteness. Isn't that the cutest sound? If you are out on foot walking and you hear that little call, you must be very careful because you might be very close to a den of lions with no mum nearby, or mum could potentially be on her way back. And there's no more dangerous animal than a mother with babies. Lion and leopardess or lioness with cubs can be very, very dangerous due to the fact that the cubs don't have the ability to get away. So they're very protective over them. Lions in general, if they encounter people on foot, they generally move away. But it's when they have cubs and the cubs' inability to move away that causes the lioness to be quite defensive. Well, lions are a very complex species. We love spending time with them. Let's go and learn a little bit more.
Lions are a worldwide symbol of strength and courage. Their life stories a constant source of fascination and wonder. As cubs, they are vulnerable, amusing, and unspeakably adorable. Going about the playful lessons they will need as Africa's top predator. To survive, hunting is the most important skill. Lions ghost through the waving grass of East Africa, scanning for prey from raised vantage points. In South Africa's Western Kruger, the pride stalk the woodlands, using the trees and shrubs to spring the perfect trap. Different habitats mean contrasting hunting strategies for the prize. The East African lions are invisible in the long grass, before exploding from cover to chase down the weak and the young. The Kruger lions are ambush specialists, surprising and disorientating their prey with a multi-pronged attack. Lions inspire as Africa's top predators, with their brutal strength, mesmerizing grace, and profound courage.
Lions, just the most incredible animals. From their family dynamic to the sheer power that they possess is really something quite incredible. As you can see, we've got what lions probably hate most, and that is two hyenas that are busy moving away from us at the moment, and so nice to kind of see them. But I'm not really happy with these two hyenas, and I'll get into why now. My name is Tristan, and on camera I've got David, and I believe that we a few little technical difficulties with our sync, so we'll try and sort that out just now. But I'm saying now that I'm not very impressed with these two hyenas, and I'll tell you the reason is that we managed to find a male leopard here with a wildebeest carcass, and we followed him for about an hour, just over an hour, after he was chased off by these two hyenas, and then moved off into an inaccessible spot in the sort of rocky outcrops that you can see that are around us at the moment. So in the background there's a rocky outcrop. It's not that exact outcrop that he went into, but one like that, and it was just impossible to get anywhere near him. He was fairly relaxed, which was quite nice. Often here in East Africa, some of the leopards, particularly in these open plain environments, are not as relaxed as what we see down in South Africa, but this particular male was very, very, very good to us, and we had some really nice views. It's just a pity that he disappeared. But we're going to try and see if we can catch hyenas. There is the wildebeest carcass is somewhere in this long grass. It's very, very tricky to see anything in grass at the moment, and so we're going to just try them and see if they take us back to the carcass. In the meantime, though, let's send you back down to South Africa with Jamie on foot.
Sorry, we're not in South Africa. We are in the Maasai Mara still, and our sausage tree pride is a little bit restless. They seem to be on the hunt. Those are the cubs at the back, and we're just going to swing round now towards the right, where the lionesses are definitely up to something. They don't look full, they don't look very thin, but it looks like they could eat. And I think that they've either heard the herds, excuse the pun, way down below to the sort of right-hand side of your screen. Otherwise, they've heard a buffalo maybe, or they can smell a warthog. But those are the sorts of things that they eat when the buffalo, at least when the wildebeest are not around this area. Now you can see how long this grass is. And that grass makes it difficult for the lions to hunt, but it also helps them to hide. And it'll be much, much shorter by the time the wildebeest get through here. I'm sorry, James, I missed your question there. We'll have to have it again as this lioness looks off towards the northeast. Good question. The territory size of the sausage tree pride. Well, that's a really good question because at this time of the year it changes. Normally, this pride's territory is probably around about, I'm going to say, 7.5 to 10,000 hectares or so. So that's about 100 square kilometers, give or take. It's probably slightly smaller than that, but that's around about the average size for this area. When the migration's in town, however, all of the territory boundaries start to blur because all of the lions want to get in on the action. So you can often find lions way out of their normal territories trying to take advantage of the migration herds. The sausage tree pride is currently in their traditional territory, but that can change all the time. What doesn't change so much is the male lions, and our male lion is actually coming back towards us now. There he is. That is the Eldonyo Payak male, and he'll be keeping up with these females, hoping that they kill something so that he can take advantage of that. But their territories, which can be up to sometimes 20,000 hectares or 30,000 hectares in extreme cases, their territories don't shift nearly as much as the females do during the migration, but they've got to be very careful at this time of the year because there are a lot of nomadic males moving with the migration herds, and they can pose a real threat to the territorial integrity that these fellows have. So he's hoping for a sleep or a meal. He's not really sure which. While he decides, and while we decide which lines to follow, let's go back to South Africa, where Lauren is with the great Chief Hosana.
We're still with our sleepy leopard Hosana here, but it sounds like such a fun-filled morning across the 3 countries on the African continent, which of course is brought to you by CGTN Wild. Now, although we can see very clearly Hosana here, his markings, we call them rosettes, actually mean that he's really, really camouflaged, more camouflage than you would actually think. It's called disruptive markings, and what they do is basically break up the body's outline. So here in the woodland habitat, he's able to walk through the long grass, the trees, the shrubs, anything out here, and actually he's harder to spot, literally more than you would think. So of course here, he's very easy to see, but when he gets up, he likes to keep himself hidden. Leopards are solitary, completely different of the lions you're seeing up in the Maasai Mara right now. He's out here alone, and he needs to maintain that sort of elusive and quiet state to ensure that he's not spotted by anyone around here, both other predators and of course his prey items. Now he keeps popping his head up every so often and just having a little look and smell and listen to see what is going on around him. And if anything does attract his attention, he will be very awake, I can assure you. So only 16% of all leopard hunts out here in the Kruger end in success. And Hosana here is now an absolute champion hunter.
At the beginning of the year, Hosana was in a difficult stage of male mammal development. Physically, he'd moved on from gangly teenager to handsome, stocky young adult. His character, however, remained clownish in his cub-like search for entertainment. Bite-sized goslings and their parents were hardly a serious meal. At the other end of the scale was his deluded perception of invincibility. A trait he shared with adolescent men. It was time for the little chief to learn his limits. Hosana's hunting efforts were clearly often successful. His plump belly was evidence of that. Even if he still enjoyed the carefree games of youth. But the unfamiliar hormones of adulthood had begun to flow. They were changing his behavior. He began to spray bushes and scrape where he'd urinated, quite possibly without any intent to stake a territory. Tingana did not react to his son's adult behavior. If, however, it becomes deliberately territorial and is accompanied by sawing, the big old duke will not be nearly so tolerant.
A really special thing about that cat Hosana is, of course, is that we've followed him since the day he was born, and so he's really like part of the family. The Sausage Tree Pride remains on the move. The 5 lionesses have just walked past us, and we now await the arrival of the little cubs in their parade. There they come. A little morning parade of cubs, and the male way behind, as always. He looks quite resentful, almost, that he has to keep moving at this time of the day. At 8:30 in the morning, he'd quite like to be fast asleep. That's a beautiful picture of a male lion as the sun comes out onto him. And the cubs, interestingly, they're all coming past the front of us now. I'm afraid we've got some major communication difficulties at the moment. So we're just going to stay with these lions until I'm clear as to exactly where the director wants me to go. Janine, it's a question from you, a really good one. How far can lions smell and hear their prey? Well, it depends very much on the wind, but we think that lions can smell carcasses up to about 10 kilometers away, which is pretty far. That'll be if the wind's blowing in the right direction. If it's blowing the other direction, they won't smell them from, more than, say, 10 meters away. Hearing, excellent hearing, they will be able to hear the herds now. The herds are not in their territory, and I think that's why they're moving to the eastern edge of their territory at the moment. I'm sure that they can hear that bellowing, canoeing sound that the herds are making. And that's why they're looking off towards where the herds are. You can see them salivating almost at the thought of the wildebeest arriving. So they're on the eastern extremity of their territory now. Well, we're going to stay with this magnificent pride of lions. We're going to go north now instead of south, up to the northern parts of the Mara Triangle, where David Gathambagithu is with one of the vanguard of the migration.
Well, I do not think those lions are to blame for the injury on this zebra because we're in the north and those lions are in the south. But I want to believe this particular zebra have a story to tell because it must have survived what I would think a lion attack. You can see the wound on it, and this is what exactly happens here in the African wilderness. And for those of you who could be joining us now, my name is David, and manning the camera is Bungay. And we're very excited because we left our rhinos, and we thought, let's look for something else, and found this particular zebra with a huge wound. Remember, we are coming to you live from the Maasai Mara of Kenya, and should you have any comments or questions, you are more than welcome to send them through on Twitter, CGTN World or Wild Wonderland. Yeah, I agree with you. This is ouch, because if you look at that wound, it's quite huge. And Bungay is going to try and throw his camera there and zoom in. And you notice the tail of this particular zebra is quite, I would say, quite busy, and she has to keep getting the flies out of it because the flies will make it not heal very quickly. Now, we got certain oxpeckers here in Africa that are called red-bill or yellow-bill oxpeckers. The red-bill oxpeckers tend to specialize in sucking blood out of the mammals. And if any of them will come here as she's having a wee, and that tells me it's a female, I'm not sure that is her fowl. Oh yeah, I guess it's her fowl. She's having a wee and she also wants to suck. She's not very happy with that. And not sure the fowl is really sorry for the mother. Is it time to have some breakfast? Lovely. This is the common zebra, and there's a bird. I just spoke of a particular oxpecker, and there she is, which they tend to get the parasites out. But one particular type, makeup girl, I get your point, and you think, or you are wondering if she would have fallen when crossing the river. Well, we are quite a distance from the river, makeup girl, and that's a very good question. But what would happen, makeup girl, is if she would have fallen, she would have fractured her legs. Those are normally the damages that you get when they're trying to plunge in the Mara River during the migration. The biggest casualties on their bodies are always on the legs. So very unusual, she would have fallen upside down. But my guess is this could have been a clomac, and there was definitely a predator of some sort that was trying to get her down. And as a guess is, chances were it could have been some lions. That's definitely her fowl or her youngster. And is quite interesting. Bungay, if you move your camera to the right a little bit, there's an impala there. All those are buffaloes, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm also seeing like an impala that could be dead somewhere there. Not sure what could be happening in this particular area, having a zebra almost killed by some lions. And this impala here seems to be dead. Well, we're going to find out if maybe a leopard could have killed this impala or a cheetah, who knows. But talking of crossing the river and having seen that zebra is always interesting to see how they plunge in the Mara River.
A lone zebra finally crashed towards the river, chased by a Paradise Pride lioness, right into the jaws of a waiting crocodile. For a while, the lioness watched as her meal fought. Perhaps she too was impressed with the immense courage displayed in the face of unspeakable odds. But the zebra's determination and will to survive somehow held out. A zebra is 1,000 pounds of explosive power. As his hooves found purchase on the riverbed, the crocs faltered, giving their victim the tiny gap he needed to escape. Sadly, with a broken fetlock.
And these are two such vastly different ecosystems, from the bounty of the migration and, of course, the ever-available amount of vegetation for the animals to eat there. In contrast, here in South Africa, the animals, especially animals as large as elephants like this one, have to eke out an existence during the dry season. And as it happens, we are sitting probably, I would say, 50 meters away from an elephant bull who has absolutely no idea that we are here. So there we go. We managed to track him down and find him. And quick reintroduction. My name is Jamie. Behind the camera is Craig. And behind both of us is the inimitable Herbie. Herbie helps to make sure that we're not about to go stumbling into something dangerous while we are out on foot with an earpiece and chatting and talking to you. At the moment, this is the perfect situation. It's very, very still this morning, in contrast to the last 2 days when the August winds have been howling, even though it's July. Nobody told the weather that. And the animals have always been slightly on edge, to where now it's very still. And this elephant actually has no idea that we're here. Not a clue. Every now and again he looks across with a sort of an inkling that something is amiss. But it hasn't changed his behavior at all, and this is the way that we prefer to do walks. When we're out on foot, what we're aiming to do, we're putting all of our knowledge and skill into, is not affecting the animal's natural behavior. And sometimes that's difficult with elephants. They're naturally curious animals, and sometimes when you think they haven't seen you, they circle round to come and investigate. As our Ellie bull, because he doesn't know we're here, of course he's hiding behind some trees. So while he vanishes off into a thicket, we're going to send you across to the Maasai Mara, where the flies apparently are something awful.
Well, you are back with us on the CGTN Wild Wonderland live show, of course, everybody. And well, we are with this male lion who his face is covered in flies. He had his head in a carcass not so long ago. We never saw what it was. We were on our way there to have a look at whatever the vultures were interested in when we found the lioness of the Salt Lake Pride with her two little teddy bears, and then we saw this guy from a distance. So we haven't even gotten to the kill site, but he's been following her for some time. And sorry, my name is Steve Falconwich, joined by Chandre on camera once again, and here he comes. He's got a beautiful, beautiful dreadlock hanging off of his chin. Not so beautiful. Look at the size of him. I don't know if that's blood or if that is a wound on the side of his head, but he is a big boy. He's not fully mature. I think he's still got a little bit of growing to do. There's a little bit of mane development still lacking on the side here. Well, you want to know if lions fight with other lions? Well, let me get out of this drainage line here. Male lions, that is what they do for territory. They fight, and it can be quite aggressive. It can actually even lead to their death. Now, lionesses will fight against other lionesses, and males, let me just come up here, Jean-Ray, hold on. Males will fight against other males. Ooh, he is bleeding. There is blood on the road here. Now, that is probably he's got a wound from something. I don't know if that can't be blood from a kill just deposited on his body. He is bleeding quite badly. So male lions will fight each other for territory. They'll fight each other for territory for the right to mate. And they can quite often kill each other, either immediately or they can die with the wounds afterwards. Well, I'm going to turn around and see if we can follow this lion. In the meantime, I think we're going to be sending you back down a little bit to the west to James.
The sausage tree pride is settling down slightly now, enjoying the warmth of the sun after a chilly evening. They're just having a little snooze on a termite mound there, which is a very good vantage point, as well as being a very good point to sun yourself. My name is James Henry. On camera is enormous James. I can see he's getting a hole in his glove there. I might have to purchase him another one, although you have to have them specially made because he is so large. Over there are the cubs, and they're lying in a little depression where there's some water. They've had a little drink, and they're trying to keep up with their mothers because, of course, if their mothers kill something, they too will eat. They're a little bit like children following their parents shopping. Absolutely useless on the expedition, but very, very grateful when the food is purchased and bought. And there's the male, resentfully keeping up, not wanting to miss out on any of the action. Gorgeous scenes here from the Maasai Mara, equally gorgeous just down south in the Serengeti of Tanzania with Tristan and a little canid.
It is beautiful in both sides of this ecosystem, both in the Serengeti and in the Maasai Mara. Now you can see we're just watching a jackal that's running around at the moment, just hiding behind that tree and is just trotting off. Now we're in the exact same spot that we had the two cheetah brothers yesterday afternoon. Jackal running around could be a good sign. It could mean that the cheetahs are still in the area. Maybe they've managed to make a kill somewhere. So we're going to try and see if we can follow this guy around and see if it manages to give us any sort of sign of where the cheetah went. And it's going to hopefully be somewhere in this area. There's a lot of prey items that are around. We had lots of Thompson gazelles yesterday and wildebeest that were around, and so it'd be a very, very, very good place to check. And I wouldn't be surprised if these cheetah managed to find something. We left them actually enough right in this area where we are right now, just to the sort of right of this big tree, and they were scanning around, and so hopefully they'll be somewhere close by. We're going to have a quick search, and while we do that, let's send you back up to David in the Mara, who's got one of the fastest antelopes we get out here.
Cheetahs could be a good possibility to catch at one point, especially in an open area where I am now. I have once in a while found some cheetahs just walking around near that, and we will see there that we call a topi. And topis are very similar to what we call sesebes that you see further down in South Africa. But quite a cool sighting we got here. Very open, nice light. We got a topi there. We got what we call the common zebras or the bachel zebras, and we also got the smallest guys. When talking of cheetahs, that this happened to be their favorite meal. Thompson gazelles found the whole of East Africa. And looking at cheetahs menu, they are always number one. 50% of what cheetahs eat will be these particular gazelles that we call the Thompson gazelles. Very fast. And they always get the very fine grass that is quite soft. Both males will have horns, but the males have a little bit of bigger horns. I think my friend Steve got lions that are very thirsty.
Indeed we do. We've got our dreadlocked Rastafarian lion here who's just caught up on a little bit of moisture. Now, I must apologize before. I thought what I saw on the road was blood, but on closer investigation, this naughty boy lay down on the ground, and while he was lying down, he was urinating on the floor. So, in fact, it was urine and not blood. So I do apologize for my mistake there, but there he's regathering his liquids, having a bit of a sneeze. Lions quite often ingest bone and fur and everything when they eat, and quite often leads them to some sniffing, or should I say sneezing fits, and then even some coughing to get rid of some fur balls, which they then regurgitate up, things they can't digest. So this is the Egyptian goose pan we were talking about. This is where those 3 little youngsters were actually born. And when we turned away from the lioness to come back, there he goes, he was having a bit of a scent marking there. We were going back to this male. We actually found what seemed to be the rest of the pride on the other side of the pan in the very long grass. So they seem to like hanging around this pan. Water does attract animals, and also it is a necessary thing for animals to drink twice, sometimes 3 times daily. And lions will drink whenever they can, although they can get a lot of their moisture from the blood on the carcasses or kills that they make. But I don't think this is one of the fathers of the pride. She was definitely not giving him the look of an animal who belongs. And if that is the case, he is a serious threat to not just the 3 youngest, but the 5-month-old cubs as well. Those male lions will, well, not all of them, but for the most part, will kill cubs on sight to try and bring females back into estrus. And the reason they fight for territory and for females is to have babies. So it can always be quite something to see. Well, James is still with the Sausage Tree Pride. They've been growing in number since we started filming them. Let's go and see what they're up to.
They have been growing in numbers, absolutely. There were just 5 lionesses when we started following them last year, and now they're up to 15. They've lost some cubs along the way, and it's been a lovely kind of year and a half following them and enjoying their story and enjoying the sadnesses and the joys of the Sausage Tree Pride. Now, the biggest lioness in this pride, or the oldest lioness, is a lioness called Kinky Tail, and I can't actually tell from where they're lying now which one is Kinky Tail. When you see them walking, it's very obvious because she's got a broken tail, and so there's a kink in it, and she's the most obvious lioness in this pride and the most clearly recognizable, and she's had a very tough time over the last little while.
Kinky Tail is the oldest lioness in the Sausage Tree Pride, and she is their center. She is easily recognized by her broken tail. Her wealth of experience is extremely valuable, especially on the hunt for dangerous prey. She understands the techniques to kill. And is fiercely protective of her pride. But her gentleness is as profound as her ferocity. Kinky Tail is the epitome of a successful Mara lioness.
Special soft spot for Kinky Tail. She was actually the first lioness I ever saw, or one of the first lionesses that I ever saw in the Maasai Mara. The one that I could recognize the most easily, obviously with her distinctive tail that I'm sure was broken at some point in her life. We're still with our elephant, and of course you are watching this live. You'll notice I'm keeping my voice down. He's become ever so slightly more aware that there's something going on. We've moved to a different termite mound. Ah, there we go. It's amazing how, with male elephants in particular, they tend to be much more relaxed than the breeding herds. I suppose when you know that you're the biggest thing out here, it certainly confers a sense of security and size. There's absolutely nothing out here that is a threat to a male elephant. Not here where we are in the greater Kruger. There's nothing out here that could potentially harm them except perhaps another male elephant. They have no natural predators. Lion prides have been known to catch them, but it is unusual and only in certain areas, and definitely not a bull of this size. And they go through a period when they are around about sort of 20 years old where they're a little bit nervous. And after that, they become these wonderful, secure, comfortable animals. And a lot of people saying that this is awesome. It really is. This is exactly how I like to spend my mornings, sitting on a termite mound in the sun in midwinter, watching an elephant walk by me without the faintest clue that I'm here. Oh, we've only got one at the moment, which is just enough for me. At least I can keep my eyes on him. Steve, on the other hand, is looking all around him at a herd of elephants.
Excellent, Jamie. You are very right. An elephant a day, I would say it should mix once a day. And having one, nothing to worry, because I have about 10 for you here, if not more. And apparently, I got 3 little calves there, Jamie. Not sure whether you'd want me to send you pictures much later, but just look at those babies walking in a line. How special is this? Same species of elephants Jamie has, and the same ones I got here, the African elephant. And they seem to be of the same age, those babies. I'm just guessing those calves there could be of the same age. And that's one of the cows walking next to them very closely. Elephant calves will always walk very close to their mothers, and above all, they'll always want to learn. They look what their mothers do, being very intelligent animals. Elephants are my favorite animals of all the animals that we got in Africa. They must have gotten something very special there. You see how they're congregating in that particular spot. It could be something very yummy. Or do you want to drink some water and have a drink? You notice the grass there looks a little different. It's much greener. And it's just the youngsters, whatever it is that they are enjoying. Bo, that's a great comment that this is an elephant parade. And apparently you're right. We got what we call collective nouns of animals in Africa. And for elephants, we always say a parade of elephants. And there's Thompson gazelle running across there. We just missed it. And yeah, when we give collective nouns to the animals here, Bo, in Africa, for the elephants, we usually say a parade of elephants. You see the Thompson gazelles running there, shoop, and more coming. How lovely. And there's still more coming. You remember earlier I was saying that the Thompson gazelles are the fastest, gazelles that we got in Africa, and being also favorite food for the cheetah. Look at that. How what a lovely morning this has been here in this other end of the Mara. I will not call my elephants migration, but I think Steve have the proper true migration.
Well, everybody, we've finally managed to get you back into the migration this morning. The lions have been busy, and the herds are moving ever west and north. And this area here is an area we've been having the Salt Lick Pride for the last little while, and now it is covered in animals. Quite incredible to see the mixture here. There's lots of zebra in the mix. We haven't been seeing as many zebra over the last week as we would expect to. I reckon there's 600,000 zebra in the migration. versus the 1.3 million wildebeest. But for the most part, we've just been seeing lots and lots of wildebeest. And the purpose of it is that the zebras actually normally move in front and they crop the grass down because they've got teeth in the top of their mouth, the top of the palate as well as the bottom, so they quite easily can munch the taller grass. And they facilitate by chopping the grass lower, where the wildebeest really enjoy much shorter grass. Maybe it's because the areas we've been in have experienced a big fire, so the grass is all very short there, so haven't needed the zebra to facilitate for them. But magical to be in amongst the migration on this beautiful rolling landscape. We're going to go back over to James, who's found the world's largest bird.
What we have here is not a lion, but an ostrich. And interestingly, the ostrich has a call that is not dissimilar to the roar of a lion. I always think that they're one of the most fascinating creatures, and also so incongruous, seeing them in an area like this. You expect to see wildebeest and topi and zebra and Thompson's gazelles and eland, and then you get this enormous bird, the world's biggest bird, sometimes weighing up to 100 kilograms. And a very fast runner. This is a male, and you can see the pinkness of his head and his neck indicates that he is in fact ready to mate. And there's a female behind him who's very disinterested. She's walking away, so we won't show her to you. She's very drab and grey. And he's the spectacular black and white colour with that ridiculous pink face, and his legs are equally pink. Now, you might expect an animal like this to eat mice or reptiles and other small mammals, perhaps, but in actual fact, they eat herbs. They are vegetarians for the most part. I'm sure they do take the odd insect, but largely they're vegetarians. And another wonderful fact about the ostrich, of course, is that its brain is smaller than its eye. As you look at its eye there, which I think is just wonderful. Alrighty, just beyond this ostrich is a secretary bird, but much closer by is a secretary bird to David Gathamba Githu.
Well, it's very interesting to come from ostriches, as I just tried to reposition a little bit my car here. And long time ago, when I was a baby, I used to call secretary birds baby ostriches because from a distance, they just look like ostriches. Are you happy there, Bungay? Are you happy? Keep coming? All right. And what you got here is a secretary bird, which is a very iconic bird of Africa and also in East Africa. You also see them in South Africa too. And a secretary bird is actually called a hunter's bird because of how they get their food. Look on how they walk in the grass, and ideally what they're doing, they're looking for some prey. And they eat anything from insects, and sometimes we have always seen them catching, even snakes. And sometimes they use their legs to just kill them and then eat them. It has been a very good morning, both from South Africa and Tanzania and Serengeti and here in the Mara. And it has been very nice to hear all your questions and your comments. We want to thank you very, very much for that. And ladies and gentlemen, remember, we'll be out here again this afternoon, 5 o'clock East African time, 4 o'clock Central African time. And the secret birds in general go in twos. So if Bungay, you go to the left a little bit, you can see the other member of it right there. A male and a female, and always very difficult to tell the difference between the two, unlike the ostriches. Well, on behalf of everybody, we want to thank you very much. See you this afternoon. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.